Today we'll be talking about Paper Mario. What are the hardest enemies in Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door? This is an answer I think people like, huh? What will be the hardest enemies? And these are my opinion. First is the prologue enemies. There's only like 4 or 5 enemies in the prologue. So you have the three Goombas and you have the Spinia. Yeah, and of those would probably be the Spiky Goomba because he does the most damage. Spinia has 3 HP though, but the Spiky Goomba does have a spike which forces you to use the hammer. Especially if there's more than one Goomba, this will be very difficult because you might have to fight other Goombas between it. Next is Chapter 1, and yeah, we are not including any bosses, so no Gus, no Boopa, no Hooktail, the standard enemies. So Chapter 1 introduced the Koopa Troopa, the Fuzzy, and the Paratrooper and Dollbones. And of course the Goombas. If you're unprepared, Dollbones actually might be a very difficult enemy to defeat. Dollbones can bring out more Dollbones, and if you don't use Power Smash, you can't actually hurt Dollbones. You're gonna either have to use Koops. You're gonna have to use Koops to defeat Dollbones. If you use Koops to defeat Dollbones, it's much easier. But I think a normal hammer can defeat Dollbones, but Dollbones can continuously create more Dollbones as well. But out of the 4 enemies, Fuzzy could also be pretty difficult as Fuzzy can replenish its own HP as well. So yeah, I think I may have to go with the Fuzzy because Dollbones only has 1 HP and the Fuzzy has 3 HP and Fuzzy can heal itself. Next is Chapter 2. We have the Cleft, which is in Chapter 2. Pale Piranha, Dark Puff, X-Knot, Yux, Piter, and yeah, I think the hardest enemy of them all is probably the Cleft. The Cleft is a boss in the earlier game, but it's also found in the boggy woods and it has a HP, attack, and defense of 2. You're gonna need to use Quake Hammer if you have gotten it. But again, you're gonna need to have a stack on Power Box to be able to defeat the Cleft, as it has a defense of 2. It also has an attack of 2 as well, which is pretty bad. If you are all the other enemies, the other enemy that is remotely difficult in Chapter 2 is the Yucks. Thankfully, you can't really fight them after you beat the Great Tree. So the Yucks is 3 HP and attack 2, but the thing that makes the Yucks hard is the fact that the Yucks can put up a shield around itself, which means if there's more like 3 or 4 enemies, and 2 of them are Yuxes or X-Knots, you're gonna have to probably take out the Yuxes before you take out the X-Knots. As the Yuxes, you can't really, if you actually got Super Guardian, because they attack from a distance, and also they summon the mini Yuxes as well. Well, the Bald Cleft you have to fight like few times. No, not the Bald Cleft. The Cleft you have to fight a few times, but the Yucks is pretty annoying. Yeah, the Yucks will be counted out for the Great Tree, and the Cleft will be counted towards the outer area. Next is Chapter 3. And Chapter 3 introduces the KP Koopa, KP Paratrooper, Pokey, Spiny, Rakitu, Bandit, Big Bandit, Hyper Bald Cleft, Babam, Swooper, which, well, actually, you can't really fight unless you play the remake, Iron Cleft, LS Buzzy, Sadie Koopa, Para Sadie Koopa, Green Fuzzy, Flower Fuzzy, the 3 Mazzy Koopas, Buzz, Hammer Bro, Boomerang Bro, Fire Bro, Dark Claw, Red Stomp, and Dark Koopa Troll. I think the hardest of the non-boss enemies, unless you really count the Koopa Troll and Dark Claw as bosses, it would have to be the Red Swamp. It has a defense of 3, which is very high for this boss of the game. Of course, you can just use Yoshi to defeat the Red Swamp pretty easily, which makes Yoshi makes the harder enemies pretty easier. But another really hard one is the Ironcraft, as the only way you can defeat it is by Yoshi. So basically the only way to defeat it is to use Yoshi. If you don't have Yoshi, it is impossible to beat the Ironcrafts. And earlier on in the chapter, the enemy that usually gives you a hard time would be the bandits, as you have to make sure you have that really hard. You have to appeal like 3 times. I think it's very annoying. No, and then you have to defeat the bandits with 8 and 5 HP. And if you want to tell them, which in the remake you can basically do that. I didn't know this, but in the remake you don't have to worry about this anymore. But for the earlier part, this is a pretty hard battle. But I think the hardest would probably be the Red Swamp if you're not using Yoshi and being stupid, because the Red Swamp has free defense. But yeah, definitely use Yoshi against the Red Swamp. If you want to include Dark Claw and the Koopa Troll will probably be the hardest, as he has an attack of 5, a defense of 2, and HP of 25. Next is Chapter 4, which is the 3 Hyper Goombas. But it's Crazy Daisy, Amazing Daisy, which is an enemy that you never really fight, a Hypercraft, Buzzy Beetle, Spike Top, Super, and Boo. Well, I think we know Hypercraft. If you use a Power Block or the Quake Hammer, these enemies are not that hard. They have a max HP of 4, but these enemies can give you 9 damage. Yes, 9 damage, and it's very, very difficult to defeat these. When I was younger, I always struggled fighting these. Other very difficult enemies include the 3 Goombas. So it's funny, the creepy steeple enemies are actually much easier than the Goombas outside. Heck, if there's like 3 or 4 of these Goombas, you can actually lose these Goombas if you're not careful for fighting them, as they can put up to attack up to 8 and 9 for the Spiked Goomba. And the creepy steeple, I would probably think the Spike Top's the most dangerous, because you can't really, jump on it, but you can still use a Power Block to defeat it, or Quake Hammer, or just use Yoshi's Gulp to basically instant kill it. Then we have Chapter 5, which introduces Ember, Future Piranha, Lava Bubble, Bullet Bill, Bill Blaster, and Ballkeeper Bomb, Power Buzzy. Also, there's also Flower Fuzzy and Green Fuzzy, which are all available as well. I think the hardest enemy would probably be, I think, either between the Bill Blaster or the Ballkeeper Bomb. Ballkeeper Bomb, if you do not understand how these enemies work, these enemies can basically can defeat you really quickly. Also, the Bill Blaster, if you do not go after the Bill Blaster, they'll keep pulling out bullet bills. Each bullet bill can do 4 damage. They have 1 defense. Yoshi can't gulp the bullet bills as they're in the air, and it'll be pretty difficult as well. But again, you can just use Yoshi to defeat the Bill Blasters pretty easily. Another very difficult enemy would be the Ember and the Lava Bubble, simply because they appear in 3s or 4s. Like, this is, Lava Bubble is actually easier than the Ember, but when you usually fight these enemies, they're usually in like 3s, which these enemies use up your FP very quickly. But I think probably the worst enemy would probably be either the Bill Blaster or the Ballkeeper Bomb. The Bill Blaster can shoot multiple bullet bills, which means you're going to have to take out the bullet bills, and they can keep shooting them out and out. And also they summon bullet bills. And also they can summon 2 bullet bills at once. Thankfully, I never had to deal with that when I was going, this time around for Fowler's Door. And Ballkeeper Bombs, they can literally instant kill you. There's like multiple of them. Chapter 6 introduces Magic Koopa, Koopa Troll, Hammer Bro, Spunnia, which has an HP of 12, Rough Puff, Poison Pokey, and Spiky, Power Buzzy, and Dog Boo. So, of all these enemies, Spunia, I didn't know until you get to fight him in Rogue Report stores until the Pair 100 trials. But I think the worst enemy, and what's at this point, the Pair 100 trials enemies here, but I have never really had to fight these in the Rogue. Oh yeah, they're like in this one secret area. I forgot. But I think the worst has to be the Spiky Power Buzzy. If he did not get the spike sealed, well, look at this. This guy is flying in the air and he has a spike on top of him. That is, of course, the, epitome of pain. And when I was younger, I didn't know there was a spike sealed. So this enemy was actually, I would always avoid them. Because, oh, this guy has a spike. I can't jump on him. You can only use like the full hammer, but you can't use Swift against him because they're immune to fire. And it's just like, it's a whole world of pain having to deal with these. And also these MFers on the Pit of 100 trials. Yeah, they really want us to suffer with these spiky power buzzies. Yeah, I think these are probably the worst of all these enemies here. Yeah, also, Cooper Trolls are pretty bad, but they won't have a max HP of 8, thankfully, as well. And we have the Spike Seal, they're pretty easy to defeat, as once you get them down on the ground, as well. And also, you can use the ulti against them. So, next is Chapter 7. It introduces Ice Puff, Frost Piranha, Mooncraft, Z-Yux, Elite X-Not, X-Yux, and X.VHD. Okay, I think it would probably be, there are two enemies I think would be a contention here. The Mooncraft because of how common they are and the, levels, especially pair 100 trials. You can, of course, turn it over with Explosion. Then, which means if you could use, Bobbery or Yoshi against it, but I think probably the worst is probably the X-Not with the VHD, because these guys can literally heal themselves. They can literally heal to their partners. They can shrink your attack and stuff and make you weaker. Yeah, these are probably the worst of them all. Yeah, but yeah, it's raining now. Again. Then we have the final chapter. Superior Dry Bones, not Dull Bones, B-Bill Blaster, Phantom Ember, Chain Chomp, Dark Lizard, and yeah, those are all the enemies that appear in the Powers of Shadow. These are at the end of the game. This is a pretty tough one because a lot of these are pretty hard. Chain Chomp defense could be ignored using Yoshi. Phantom Ember is pretty difficult, but has no defense. Big Bill Blaster is pretty difficult as well. The end of the game, well, Dry Bones can also build friends if it feels outnumbered. Again, what is the worst enemy at the end of the game? Well, the Dark Lizard is pretty difficult. It has 2 defense. Also, it can magic alter your condition. It will mortify itself to confuse you. But yeah, they're pretty tough enemies. They get, basically illusion. There's no point attacking it. There's no bother. The real Dark Lizard has a max HP of 10, attack of 5, and defense of 2. So if you attack the real one, it loses for fairness. So yeah, this enemy is pretty difficult as well. But I think too, we have a few water ups here. The Bill Blaster, the Bull Bills can really do 6 damage, which is very difficult. Dry Bones can really rebuild its partners and has 8 HP. And Chain Chomp has a defense of 5 and has an attack of 6 as well. And also Yoshi gets probably easily defeat these as well. So yeah, those are the hardest enemies. Then what about the Pit of 100 trial? Well, we have the Goombas, the Dark Koopa, the Dark Power Koopa, the Bad Bandit, Dark Rikidu, Dark Sky Blue Spiny, Lizard, Piranha Plant, Dark Bristle, Arancua, Elite Lizard, Swampire, Poison Puff, Bombok, and Oh yeah, this is the most dangerous boss of all time. Raka. HP 108, yeah, we all know. Raka is a very difficult boss. Yo. Okay, all things considered. Okay, well, I've never really got through the Path 100 trials, but I think one very difficult enemy would probably be the Dark Bristle. But again, you do have if you do the strategy, even these enemies are not that difficult. Because you just use Spike Shield. You can't even use Yoshi against this either, and they're on fours 81 to 89. So you can fight them on any fours as well. And that's it about this video here. So what do you think is the hardest? Paper Barrier, the Flower Zero Door enemy. And yeah, that's about this video here. Goodbye. We all know it's definitely Wacka. Goodbye.